This year I grew an ancient grain that is common in many parts of Africa. It's used as a staple food crop in those areas, along with sorghum as well. And up here in North America, I found that humans are not the only species that like to consume it. So what is this plant? I forget what this is called. I think it's like bird's foot millet or crow's foot millet, or claw millet or something. But this is one of those ancient grains, and actually that is foxtail grass or millet. The plants are not, they're both grasses, but they're not that closely related necessarily. So this plant has been grown by various traditional farmers in certain areas of the world, and I got these plants from, I think it was called serendipity seeds or something. Yeah, it's really interesting how they produce that seed with the claw-like structure. And you can see kind of some of the lance-shaped grass-like leaves. Not as many of them came up as what I would have liked, but hopefully I'll be able to get some seeds and get a bunch more of these plants next year. Maybe eventually start using it as a food source. These seeds may need to be threshed and stuff. You can see they're beginning to turn brown a little bit. Yeah, they're beginning to turn brown a little bit, so they'll be ripening up probably soon, in the next few weeks or so. So this is a really interesting addition into the garden. I'd imagine you could even use this as like a ornamental type plant too, in like a flower bed or even in like arrangements. It would add a really kind of a unique flair. Alright, so here we have some the finger millet. You will see a lot of these stalks the seeds have disappeared. I think that's a rabbit or I don't think it's a groundhog, probably a rabbit. We haven't really had any groundhogs here, but we have had a bunch of rabbits. So the seed this time of year is ripening up. It's turning darker brown and maturing. And so it's a high energy source for a lot of animals. And unfortunately it's short enough of a plant that the rabbits can access it pretty easily. So I did go to the effort of staking up the plants. That was to keep because the plants were getting top heavy and they were hanging over onto the ground. So, you know, then that would have been accessible to voles and they would have done the same thing that the rabbits did. So my efforts were meaningless. But when we get down to a point, you know, and you look at this, you know, there might be, there are some new seed pods, shoots, whatever coming out, so that might help. They might be able to like grow out more. Maybe if I throw down some compost and leaf mulch and water it like crazy or something, maybe I'll get a little extra out of that and don't have to buy seed for next year. But the rabbits are gonna make me spend money. So moving forward, you know, it's a good practice to try to, you know, keep the weeds, you know, kind of at bay around the planting area. I have a huge garden, so I have to pick and choose like my priorities. This was kind of on the priority list, and you know, I still didn't get to it, but you know, because the idea is you want to have the area not safe for herbivores, right? So like you want the area to be able to be seen by fox, by cat, by hawk, by owl. So you know, any covering brush or anything like that is a death omen for these plants. Sometimes it's good to try to make sure the plants that you're trying to grow have their space. The other aspect is too, don't just plant 2 or 3 plants. I mean, I planted like a lot more than that, but I only had a few plants come up. So you know, moving forward, it's good to plant like a lot. That way, if you know, some might get eaten by animals, but most of them won't, you know, whereas if you only plant a few in one location, which I didn't, I planted in another location, but none of them came up in that location. So they only came up here. So, you know, you just kind of try to make the best of it. But if you have more, then it kind of helps stagger out the harvest a little bit, so that it's not going to be isolated and concentrated all in one area, because who knows what could happen to that area. Pest damage, a tree falls on it, you know, animals, whatever. So it might be a good idea to just to really keep that in mind. So we'll kind of see how this goes. See if we can get a little bit more life out of these plants. If not, I'm just going to order a big old mean bag of seeds and plant a bunch of these next year. So I did find one more while I still had my chance. Figured I'd just pick it now. And it's possible that the ergo fungus could be an issue for this crop as well. I'm not sure, because I noticed some blackness. The camera won't focus, but I don't have the patience for that right now. But these seeds hopefully will be able to ripen up and dry a little bit on their own, and then maybe I'll be able to plant them out next year. There's definitely some like black splotches on the seed casing and some of the seeds themselves, so definitely some ergo issues. Probably got too damp this time of the year. Soil's not that great either in this area. And then you'll notice too, like the foxtail grass that the rabbits got off of those as well. Foxtail grass, of course, is basically millet. This is finger millet. Even though the two plants share the same common name, they are not in the same genus. But yeah, no, it's good to be aware of the animals, know what time of year like they will go after these plants, so that we can be that much more vigilant, that much more aware, that much more prepared, right? Moving forward, we know what we need to look out for, and we know steps that we can take to mitigate damage, especially if we're trying to depend on these plants as food, right? So I hope you enjoyed this video on the finger millet. It's got a pretty cool look to it. I had a lot of fun growing it, despite the rabbit damage that came late in the season. It's definitely a crop I'd like to kind of work with in the future, next year. So thank you so much for checking out this video, and I look forward to seeing you in a future video. Take care.